And when he got arrested in the story, his employer saw that. They fired him immediately. They didn't wait to find out if he was guilty. It was just the arrest was enough, and he was done. Well, that was bad news for him, but it was good news for me. Why? Well, because the guy's an expert programmer and a mathematician and a computer scientist and all those things, and he had the skills that we needed for this project in Switzerland. So we hired him. So he posted bail, got out, came to work for us, and it took about a year between the time of his arrest and the time he went to prison. So he went to trial, got convicted, and put in prison. And in that year, we were able to deliver the project. We wrote the code, delivered the project, made good money on it, and everything was great. When he went to prison, I had to hire 4 guys to replace the work he was doing. He was so good at what he was doing. So I did that. He did his time. He was in 9 months, I think. I don't know. I wasn't in. I'm sure he knows to the day how long he was in. Right. That wasn't me. So he got out, and I brought him back to work. And everything was great till we ran our first payroll. And then the president of that payroll company called me and said, Pete, I don't know if you know this. You have a convicted felon on your payroll. Okay, great. Thanks, Jeff. I know that. He said, no, that's not great. You can't do that. And I said, the last time I checked, Jeff, I was the owner of the company. I'm pretty sure I can hire anybody I want to. And he said, yeah, technically that's true. However, his crime was committed on the internet, and his position with your company requires him to be on the internet all day, and that's too much risk for us. So he can't work for you. Okay, he's not just somebody. I'm related to this guy. And they said, doesn't matter. So I called Rick into the office, and I said, all right, we have a problem. We'll come up with a solution, but I need to fire you. And I did. And then we executed the plan. He went to the state, formed a corporation, and then my company contracted with his company, and he was able to do the work that he had been doing as an independent contractor. That removed the risk from not just my payroll company. The payroll company was also our insurance company. So they were providing our business insurance.
I got it.
That's where the risk to them came from.
Right.
Okay. So that, I saw that happen. How does that relate to coffee? Because we're not there.
I know there's an answer. There's a relationship here.
There is. So one thing led to another. He worked, and things worked out pretty well. And after a period of time, he missed a day of work, and then missed another day of work. But most of the time, he was working pretty well. But there came a time where he stopped showing up to work, and it's a good thing I still had the other 4 guys who were working for me, so we were able to cover without him there. But in that intervening time, he stopped working. I merged the company with another company, and then that company got bought by another company. And at the end of that, I owned about 4%, no, less than that, 1.5% of the company that was left. All right, that was fine. I was employed, still in software. Then I got a call from this guy, and he said, I'm ready to come back to work. I said, that's great. You can send in a resume, and I'll turn it into HR, but I have no influence on hiring and firing anymore. So, but send it in. I'll turn it in. We'll see what happens.
Right.
He did. I did. They called him in for an interview. Everything went great. You have the skills we need. Come on board. Fill out this application. Okay. So he filled it out. And on it is a checkbox. Have you been convicted of a felony? And he had to check yes, he had. So that was the end of the process. All of a sudden, the company part of the company I had started was telling this guy I'm related to, we don't really have that position anymore. And I don't remember what the excuse was that they used, but suddenly there was no job. So I didn't think that was smart of the company I was working for, or right against him, because they didn't even ask what is your felony? They didn't ask any questions. It was just check the box and you're done. So I got thinking about that, and then it was about that time a friend of mine invited me to an annual fundraising dinner for a post-prison reentry program called Koinonia House National Ministries. And it was there that I learned the statistics about recidivism. So we're talking back in 2006 time frame, maybe early 2007. And found out at that time over 60% of the people who were arrested in Chicagoland, over 60% of them got released from prison. When they got released from prison, within 3 years, were back in prison for all kinds of reasons.
But mostly because they can't find decent work.
A lot of it is because they can't find decent work. And I saw that very thing. He didn't go back to prison, but he couldn't find decent work. After getting rejected at the company I was working for, he sent out dozens of resumes, had dozens of interviews, and got dozens of rejections.
And this is a person who had really strong skills.
Strong skills.
Right.
Yep. College educated, professional, all those things.
Right. So imagine if you don't have that, barely a high school education, right? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, exactly right. So I saw that. I watched what happened to him. I learned about the plight of post-prison men and women. Just in Chicagoland, 20,000 men and women are released from prison every year into Chicagoland alone. And back in 2006, over 60% of them went back to prison within 3 years. Now, the stats are a little bit better today than they were back then for a bunch of different reasons. But watching what happened to my relative and learning how much of it didn't just apply to him.
Okay, so how did that get to the coffee?
Yeah.
So let's put that together here.
Okay. So Koinonia House works in houses. So they house men coming out of prison, 4 to 6 men and 2 house parents in a house in a neighborhood, in communities across the U.S. back at that time. And I asked the friend who invited me to that dinner, what's the biggest issue? He invited me to the dinner. We started having breakfast every Friday. And I asked him one Friday, what's the biggest issue that the men at Koinonia House face? And he said, well, that's really simple. Employment.
Right, job.
Nobody will give them a job. Where have I heard that before? So we started thinking and talking at breakfast, and it was at this time that I had been teaching myself how to roast coffee. Okay, and I was now making money on the side, roasting on Saturday in my grill in Wheaton, and my neighbors were buying my coffee. Okay, so I was making more money than I was
cottage
spending.
industry
It was
there.
very cottage. Yes. I think I call it the Franklin Street Roastery at that time. So I was doing that, and Dave and I were asking each other, just thinking, well, if they can't get employment, what could they do? Maybe they could employ themselves. Okay, doing what? Pete's making money roasting coffee at home in his grill. These guys live in a home. We can get them a grill. We'll teach them how to roast coffee. I mean, that was really the germ of the idea. We're going to teach them how to roast coffee. And they're going to need to learn other things that a small business needs. Sales, administration, marketing, website. Back then, there wasn't really social media. Wasn't anything to learn there. But that has evolved into that. So business administration, accounting, and that seemed pretty daunting at the time, because I'll tell you one of the misconceptions that I had. I thought that because somebody was coming out of prison, that automatically meant they had no skill of any kind doing anything. I've learned since that is just not true. Most people coming out of prison, most people that we get to talk to coming out of prison have skill. It might be in carpentry, it might be in auto mechanics. Guess what? It can also be in accounting and website and sales and marketing and all kinds of other things.
We're talking this afternoon with Pete Leonard of I Have a Bean, a coffee roasting company that has a special mission. All right, so we need to move on here. Tell us how we got to roasting in your little Weber grill to a company.
That's right. So we thought we'll teach them how to roast. And then we wrote a business plan and realized that you can't physically roast enough coffee in your grill in a month to make enough money to have a financial impact on 6 men and 2 house parents, to have a mortgage to make, clothes to buy, food to buy, all that kind of stuff. So, okay, what's the closest we can do? We wanted to be a local employer, employ locally, and have great coffee. Well, we need a coffee roasting machine that somebody with no skill in coffee roasting could just walk up to the machine and roast coffee. Okay, we'll go buy one. That didn't exist in 2007 now. Wasn't on the market. Well, all right, if we're really serious about doing this, we have to invent another coffee roasting machine. And so we did. We invented a coffee roasting machine that allows anybody to roast with no skill whatsoever, and not just roast absolutely perfect coffee. Remember, my background is in software.
This coffee is to die for. It is so good.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You've had
And
it.
I'm a bit of a coffee snob, I have to tell you.
Coffee snobs are our best customers, I have to say. Maybe I'll write that down. So we designed and built a machine that, using what I know about software, roasts coffee using software. We tell the software what to do, but it executes our commands perfectly, faithfully, repeatedly, consistently, batch after batch after batch. That is the key that let us hire post-prison people as employees that can do everything in the company. So we started, Second Chance Coffee Company is actually the name of the company. The brand that we came up with is I Have a Bean.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Okay? But that's what you're going to see on the shelf. If you're at Whole Foods or something like that, the brand name that you're going to see on the shelf is I Have a Bean.
I have a bean. Okay.
Right? So that's what we did. We started a company with a specific purpose of hiring men and women who have a felony conviction. So on our application, we have the box, but you have to check the box for us to continue the conversation. So it's the exact opposite of what most other companies do.
And some people would say, has that worked out for you?
Well, it's worked out most of the time. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but I've employed people in other industries that have nothing to do with somebody having a felony conviction. I've employed at other companies. I have found the same mix of people who care or don't care, are dedicated or not dedicated, want to do the job or don't want to do the job. It actually has nothing to do with whether they're a felon or not. What I've found on the positive side of things, probably more felons, once they're hired, are more dedicated of work to turn in a good day's work, to do a good job, to care for what they're doing, because they've been rejected so many times by everybody else that just having a job is a huge deal for them.
Right.
And we find not just for them, it extends beyond them to their family,
Of course.
to their community, right? They get to now pay for education, they can pay a mortgage, they can do those kind of things that they otherwise would not be able to do. So we're not the only ones out there that employ post-prison people. There are some other employers. I know of 2. But they're there. Actually, 3.
There are some that it's a piece of what they do, right? But you've really made this a focus of your business.
It is a focus, and that does make it a little bit different. We employ men and women who have checked that box. Now, we can't always find the skills we need for the job we have open at the time in the post-prison pool. In that scenario, we will, with
occasionally
and with great reluctance, hire someone who does not have a felony. But if you have a felony, you get to the top of the stack.
Wow. All right. So tell me how you, again, at Good Work Chicago, we profile how people are paid as well. So how have you been thinking about payment, right? Because a lot of people will take those minimum wage jobs because it's all they can get.
Right. So we have a couple of minimum wage jobs that are mostly for college students doing part-time work in the summer market for us, or really high school kids. And some of those are my own kids. You want a part-time job? Here you go. But our employees, we don't pay minimum wage. We pay higher than the minimum wage, and there's a scale, and part of that depends on how long you've been there, what the specific work is that you're doing. And there is nothing that a post-prison employee cannot do at our company. There's no job that is that they're barred from.
Mm-hmm.
So my accountant is a post-prison person. Our salespeople are post-prison people. I do most of the marketing. I put that in quotes because I'm not a marketer. I just pretend to be one, even when I'm not on TV. Customer service, certainly roasting operations, all of those things are open. None of those are minimum wage, and they run the gamut. We scale that with time and experience, and people showing that they can really get in and do the work. So, and some other things. I mean, we're nowhere close to where we want to be. We are a startup company.
Right.
And that's hard.
It is
It's
hard. It
really,
is
really hard. Where does the money come from to pay anybody? I remember when we first started, we had no employees, right? It was me. That doesn't work.
In your grill.
Even past that, right?
Right.
Our first month of operation, you say you employ post-prison people. Where are they? Well, we actually can't afford any yet. I'm working and not getting paid to do this. So we worked really, really hard to be able to make enough money so that we could employ our first post-prison person. That happened in month 2 of our business. We were able to do that, and that's been the pattern ever since, right? As long as we can employ a post-prison person profitably, we want as many as we can get.
And so how many folks are you up to, and where would you like to be in the next few years?
That's a great question. Thank you. So we've got 6.5 in full-time employees right now,
Okay.
right? So 6 full-time and 1 part-time. And the reason we have a part-time post-prison person is because partly we're entering our busy season right now, but we're also growing as a company. So since we started roasting, we've grown by more than 9,000%. Now, that's a nice big number, right? But when you start with a small number,
That's right.
you can grow big percentages and not really grow a whole
Right,
lot.
right.
But it is definitely going in the right direction. So we believe that even after our busy season, we'll have an opportunity for full-time work to turn that part-time work into full-time work. I could just stretch everybody else and say, you got to suck it up and do the extra work that we can't afford. Well, we really can't afford it, but we need to have the work done, and it fulfills our mission, employing post-prison people. So that's what we do. It's hard, but we do it. So where do we want to be? Okay, we have big plans. Maybe too big, but we have 1 roasting plant right now, and we want 72 roasting plants spread across the United States.
Oh, wow.
Okay,
That'd be
72.
great.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be awesome. Every community has their own roasting.
That's exactly right. So, and not just their own roasting, we get to deliver locally. One of the things we do, we roast today. If you order today, we roast it today, you get it today. We want to employ locally all across the land. So, fortunately, there are people that drink coffee everywhere in the United States. And unfortunately,
Absolutely.
there are post-prison people everywhere in the United States. So we get both.
By tomorrow, we will have this show online, but also more information about where you can get some of these bags of coffee and where you can learn more about this company. Go to iwj.org, iwj.org. I also briefly want to tell you about our wage theft clinic. If you work for an employer who is not paying you fairly, do call our wage theft hotline at 773-391-8885. So, Pete, if you were advising others about how to think about pay and how to think about what kind of workers you want, what advice would you give them? And particularly, what advice would you say in terms of how you might find ex-offenders who would be good employees?
Right.
What would you tell somebody?
That's great. That's a great question because we've learned a lot over the years of doing this. One of the things that we figured out is it helps a lot to connect with one of the many or several of the many post-prison reentry programs like Koinonia House.
Okay.
Right? Ask them. They know these people.
Oh, okay. All
That's
right.
a great thing to do. So there are plenty of post-prison reentry programs in the U.S. Look them up and get connected with one. They will send you people that they believe are quality people because they want to be able to do it again.
That's right. That's right. They want a good reputation.
That's
Okay.
exactly right.
All right. So go there. Any other advice you'd give to people?
You know what? Paying people what they're worth is a big deal. whether they're post-prison or not really doesn't make any difference. The fact is people have mortgages to pay, families to raise, and that kind of thing, and you don't want them having to think about going someplace else because they can't make enough money working for you.
And that is indeed the message of Good Work Chicago, that if you pay people fairly and treat people fairly, your business will grow and prosper. So thank you. Join us next week for Good Work Chicago at 4:30 in the afternoon. I'm Kim Bobo, Interfaith Worker Justice. Thank you very much.